Thank you so much, and I'm so excited to be here. And I've been a bit in awe, to be honest. And Kyla's story was so moving, and I think couldn't have shed light into my topic more beautifully than to talk about the connectedness and the people and the cheerleaders, and I really appreciate you sharing that. I have to say, though, and I only have one piece of paper that I'm going to look at, and all the conferences, and I've been to many, I have never gone from vaginas to entrepreneurship to mindset to tomatoes to genetics to orchards, pumpkins, connection, creativity, storytelling, and finance, all in the same situation. So I want to say a big shout out to Iris for creating and curating such an amazing and interesting event, also promoting and encouraging women in agriculture. It brings joy to my soul to know that the future of agriculture is so bright and so wonderful. So what I'm going to talk about, and I realize I am the thing between you and lunch. So I am sensitive to that. And I want to take you through a few key ideas here and share with you some ideas about why I'm so inspired, why I consider myself to be such a communication nerd, and how it has helped shape my career and where I'm at today and what I'm doing these days. So this is myself, obviously, and my business partner, Sage McIntosh, who had a major family event this weekend and couldn't be here this week. But we know what BS stands for, right? It means bullshit. But it also stands for Becky and Sage. And so that is how the title of BS Communication Strategies, Inc. Came to be. And we started this in 2020. I did it off the side of my plate as a sole proprietor for a year. And I thought, I think we can do this. We kind of joked when we were in school together. I met her during our MA at Royal Roads University. We kind of joked, we're like, wouldn't it be funny if we had a communication company with VS in it? And then we just really started rolling with that. In 2020, I started operating it off the side of my plate. I was working full-time for Mosaic Veterinary Partners. I was coaching and teaching at University Calgary, and I was doing this as a side hustle, really to just test the waters to see if it was viable. Then in 2021, I said to my husband, I think maybe I should do this BS communication strategies, and keep coaching people to communicate better. And I'll explain why that's so important. Here's what my husband said, bless him. He looks at me and goes, well, it is about time. And I thought, you know we're not going to make any money right away, right, dear? And he says, you've been working so hard carrying other people's brands. Don't you think it's time you started doing your own? And that was such a pivotal, slap me in the face, man logic for me right there. So we did, and that's where we got started. So it has been quite an entrepreneurial journey, as many of you have shared. So really, I am a communication nerd. I love interpersonal communication. I detest the term soft skills. One thing I absolutely 100% know to be very true, because I've studied it at a very high level, is there's nothing soft about communication skills. In medicine, in human health, and in veterinary medicine, now they're calling them core clinical skills, meaning that we can learn them, we can practice them individually, we can get coached, we will fail, we will get better and better and better. And so to me, the very moment that I realized, in my veterinary perspective, because in my soul, there's still one thing I want to do. It's the same thing I wanted to do since I was little, was to make life better for animals. So in my soul, that's where I'm after. That is my great desire. But when I started learning the science behind communication, and the first time I went to an international conference on communication in veterinary medicine, and this is what the research showed, and this was before I got invested in my own research and doing it, was that one of the things that we could do to make animal welfare better was communicate better with the people that owned and cared for them. And I was like, what? We just need to build some skills? And we can get better, and ultimately, and in human health, it's been shown over 50 years, this isn't a surprise to any of you, especially all the talk that we've had about self-care and finding our teams for health, is that when health professionals listen to us, express empathy, sort of give a shit about us as people, our care gets better. And ultimately, and interestingly enough, in the science behind it, compliance was better, recovery was better, and health outcomes were better. So that to me was just like reason number 795 to get invested in it. So that's why I consider myself a communication nerd. I'm still doing the one thing that I wanted to do when I was 6 and 7 and 8 years old, which is do better care for animals. And I see the value of it in agriculture, for sure. I am not a farmer. I haven't been. I realized very early on I was never going to be smart enough to farm. I did not have that in me. But I worked in mixed animal practice. I've lived in rural communities. I worked at Olds College, which is an agricultural college. I've been surrounded by it and in awe of it my whole career. And I thought, if this is one small way that I can contribute to it, then I'm in. So that's where we're at. Also, just a side fun thing, I've really got onto the entrepreneurship wagon. I started and was involved in 3 startups over a 3-year period. This is my other passion outside of communication and my family is horsemanship and being a horsewoman. And so again, another fellow friend of mine and we started Women's Only, a small business curating fun events for horsewomen called the Horsewomen's Club. So this particular topic, when I first started talking to Iris about it, we were kind of talking about the changes through the pandy, and what had happened with communication and what was going on. And so we are in this surge of communication platforms right now. There's so many different ways and tools that we can use. And if someone were to ask me, well, which one works best? And I'm going to ask you in a second here. But, there's so many options right now. How many of you have felt kind of overwhelmed or staggered by the types and kinds and different ways that you can communicate? How many people have felt that? Fantastic. I feel the same, and I'm in it. I love this industry. So I keep going back to the roots of what my company is about, what I'm about, what my values are, which is to coach people to communicate better in a skills-based way. That's what I'm after. And the good news is, to me, I think the best news is that we all already are good communicators because we're upright, we're talking to people, we're using technology, we're doing all these things. So it's just a matter of refining and polishing some skills that we already have. So when I look at the definition of communication, you can look at here. I have to peer over so I can read the screen. Imparting, exchanging of information, exchanging a message, conveying or sharing of ideas, sharing and sending, receiving information, means of traveling or transporting, and literally that's one of the terms of communication. And then when it talks about communication skills, and there's a whole bunch, it's the ability to convey information and ideas effectively, which is all great. And how many people have studied that kind of communication definition? Who's done some study into communication here and have heard the thing or seen the little diagram where it's an exchange of information or ideas, it's a back and forth. And I think that's the communication skills that I'm talking about. And I go further because I know the term communication speaks to a huge landscape right now, a huge landscape. And specifically, where I focus my attention and my study is on specifically in dialogue, excuse me, where we are connected with another person, another human being. So I want to hear some shout outs here, literally stand up and shout out, or just, wherever you are, even if you're in the far back. So give me 3 answers to how communication has changed. I'm not even going to give you a time frame here. I'm not going to say in the last week, in the last year, in the decade. Tell me how it's changed. Faster? Digital? Options. Oh my God, so many options. Online, what's that? 50 characters. Who the hell even knew what a character was? I thought it was something in a story until it became a thing on your social media feeds. Any other comments about how it has changed? Instant? The attention span? I love that. Free? Non-verbal? Oh, sorry, what did you say? Brief. Oh, yeah, brief. So many things. But there's a few that I'm going to suggest haven't changed at all. And these are the things that we can build. When I look at So many tools, and I've just listed a few of them there. I mean, we're talking about them. The phones, I don't have to take you back to the rotary phone, to the thing that talks to us and is almost smarter than us these days. We know that there has been an evolution in technology, which communication has just gotten right in the thick of it. We've got everything from messaging. We can talk to tiny things like this, and they talk back to us. We have artificial intelligence. We have all these things. I'm going to ask you right now, how do you spend your communication time right now? I want you to think about that for a minute. We're going to do a little show of hands here. So, how do you spend most of your communication time right now? So, how many people would say the most of their communication time is on a keyboard? Most of your communication time. How many of you would say most of your communication time is on a tinier device? Okay. How many would say most of your communication time is in dialogue with another human being? Okay. Did we all see what the smallest number was? So what I'm trying to get at here when I think of this kaleidoscope, this whole thing, is that we have so many tools, but ultimately the most successful communication that we can have is more interactive. And even though this is how we spend our time, we are still going back and forth generally with other human beings. And that's the thing that I think we need to spend our time and our energy and our focus on. So when I said here, there's so many tools, the next thing is, well, there's so many fools that are using it. And literally it says, a person who behaves in a silly way without thinking. Do you know anyone that would be that definition in the realm of communication, or that you have in fact communicated with? Is anyone in your realm of who you communicate with a person who behaves in a silly way without thinking? How many of you know, work, the silly? Yeah. Have any of you ever been one? Yeah. So that's the humanness that we can't actually get away from, no matter all the digital that we have, maybe with the exception of artificial intelligence now that's coming through. But really, here's my point, is that great communication in its simplest form, and I would argue we're talking about great dialogue, which is a connectedness that I'm going to refer to in a minute. Great communication is simply a series of skills that we can learn, that we can teach, that we can practice, that we can get coached on. And the communication tool does not matter. It's who's holding it or using it that does. And I remember early days in one of our courses during my MA, during this master's program that I took in professional communication, which was so eye-opening for me. It changed actually how I thought about things. Because it's very easy to go down the road of bashing all the technology. Oh, the social media, the thing like that. And I remember we had this great class discussion, and I said, well, they're simply tools. At this point, we haven't been able to replicate the human experience entirely in dialogue. But I used the example, I remember in the class, because we had quite a great debate about it, I used the example of a baseball bat. So a baseball bat is an object. It is a thing that can be used. I can use it to play an exciting and enriching game. It can enhance my skill. I can use it for sport. I can use it for an implement. I can pound a nail in. I can use it if I need it to. I've seen somebody do this, use it as a splint for somebody's leg. I can also cause harm or significant damage with it. There's only one thing that changes in that example, and that is my intent. And that's the thing that's in here. So our intent is what matters the most to me and is most significant in dialogue, and it is how we express it. And it can be as simple as developing, which we talked about in our workshop, our nonverbal skills. I'll talk about these core dialogue skills, which really speaks to our intent. But when you think about the example of the baseball bat, the only thing that I still am going to pick it up and hold it the same way. The only thing that changes, how I'm going to use it, what purpose, is my intent in here. And that's what I think we need to focus a lot on in the realm of dialogue. So when I think about navigating this broad, almost ridiculous landscape of communication that we have right now, it just comes down to the same skills that I think about, that I teach day in and day out, never ending, it seems like. And that is the dialogue skills that really reinforce connection, which we have been living in connectedness in these last 2 days. We've been hearing people's stories of their successes, their failures, their dreams, their desires, their aspirations. And it's this human connection that we have with other bipeds that really is what I'm all about when I think about communication, is this connectedness. We all crave, desire, we need to be connected with other humans. It's a basic need. And dialogue is, no matter what the means is, no matter the tool, that's how we facilitate it. We just use the skills, just those. So this is my daughter. She's so beautiful. And I really talk about a lot about building core dialogue skills. And this is what I teach. This is when I first started learning that, communication skills can be separated, individualized, and we can work on each one of those, no different than what I do in any sport. So I ride horses. I'm a passionate horsewoman. And I know that I can't just go racing out. Maybe I could, but it probably wouldn't end well. But, I can't just, if I never knew about doing anything with horses, I couldn't just go throw my body on the top of one and pee off across an arena and look stunning and gorgeous, and the horse is doing all the things. It is an individual skill. First, I had to learn how to put a halter on. First, I had to learn maybe it could kill me. It's a giant prey animal. I'm about to strap myself to its back. Those are things that we have to be progressive. And in dialogue skill building, communication skill building, no matter the tool, and I always go back to these dialogue skills. When I get good at these, I can start applying them, no matter the tool that I'm wielding. I only have one intent, and that is to be really connected with other people. It's the connection that I've heard over and over and over here in everybody's story. It's the connection that really changes what we do. It's the connection that gives us opportunity, shows us the way to go, shows us the way not to go. So I'm going to give you the very, very, very simplified version of these. And I said there's 4 core skills. First, I heard that with Dr. Jane Shaw. She's one of the leading and earliest researchers on communication in veterinary medicine. One of the first actual academic papers I read was authored in 2006, and it was literally called the 4 core dialogue skills. And this is what they are. Active listening. Listening is probably one of the most difficult skills in communication to master. And I heard a few people here this weekend talk about what great listeners are. That's how we learn. We have to be a great listener. Do you guys know, could you pretty much identify, here I'm going to give you an exercise to do right now. In your mind, I want you to imagine, don't have to say their name, I want you to imagine you have this beautiful, trophy. It's solid gold, it's heavy. And the plaque on the front of it says, the best listener on the planet of Earth. Beautiful gold cup, heavy. The plaque on it, the best listener on the planet of Earth. You get to give it to somebody. It's beautiful, this beautiful acknowledgement. I want you to think in your mind, don't name their names. Tell me specifically, and I'm going to hear a couple of shout outs, why your person would get that beautiful gold cup. What is it they do? The best listener on the planet of Earth, it has to be a human being. It can't be Rufus or Kitty. It can't be one of your animals. Give me some shout outs. Just tell me 1 or 2 words why the person in your life is going to get that award from you. That beautiful gold cup. Best listener on the planet of Earth. Yeah. Yes. Sorry, what did you say?
I said Diane Finstad.
Yes. Holy crap. Listener extraordinaire. She comes up here and she's firing off one after the other what the person said, brings it into the next story, and beautifully takes it to the next one. Yes. Yeah.
Listen to understand, not to respond.
Oh, yeah. Like someone's listening. How many of us, and we've all done this, you're like, maybe you're doing it right now. I can't wait for her to stop talking so I can tell her what I think. I know there's a few of you doing that right now. What else? Best listener on the planet of Earth. Why?
Don't interrupt.
No, they don't interrupt. Oh my God. It's interesting, one of the early studies in human health, maybe it was in veterinarians, I can't remember. It was a big, significant study. It was other physicians. I think it was physicians. They interrupted in 7 to 9 seconds. And I was like, yeah, I believe that. And then I'm like, how long does it take before I interrupt? The non-interrupting, that's, beautiful. Any others? Best listener on the planet of Earth. Why did they get that award from you?
Listening, not fixing.
Oh, my God. Did you ever hear that? Listening, not fixing. I mean, we all have the fixers in our life, and we need fixers. I mean, don't get me wrong. But sometimes I don't need you to fix. I just need you to listen. And listen, this is an active skill. My daughter came home in grade 4, had this listening exercise we had to do, and these are the 3 things that I teach to build your skills in listening. Can you focus on the person's word? Could you retell their story? And could you ask them a great question? Those are the criteria for great listening. The next one is nonverbal communication. That is our intent. I call it the underwear of dialogue. Like it's there, but it's not always visible. So that nonverbal, here's how I build the skills, and this is the very shortened version. If what I'm thinking, and people that were in my workshop are going to know what I'm going to say next, I hope. If what I'm thinking matches what I'm saying, and it's aligned with what I'm feeling, I will be authentic, I will be believable, and people will be interested and invested in what I say. That's nonverbal. That's me being in alignment. How many of you have been talking to someone and you're like, I don't think they feel that way? You get a sense. Have any of you had a sense of unease when you're talking to a person, but they're saying thank you, they're saying very pleasant words, but you get a thing in here? That's your natural response to nonverbal communication. It's why we love animals, when I really think about it. They have no ability to deceive us. If they're hungry and they're thinking about food, they're hungry and they're thinking about food. They're not thinking about yesterday. They're not even thinking about what food they want to eat. I don't even know if they think that much. They just start salivating. Whatever. And my horses in the pasture, one does not go kick one and go to the other end of the pasture and stare at them with evil eyes for the rest of the day. They go up, they kick, they eat their food, it's done. Nobody's thinking about it. That's nonverbal communication. Empathy and the study of empathy, this is first of all, if you get the opportunity to read a book by Dr. Emily Weiss, it's called The Empathy Effect. Very interesting, talks about the neuroscience behind empathy, but empathy in its simplest form is you acknowledging how someone feels and why they feel it. Yeah, Brené Brown's done some amazing work, huge, amazing work. But in its simplest form, and the way to practice that is to do it on yourself. So it would sound like, I am feeling right now wildly, sensationally inspired after being at this conference, because I feel like I've been gifted with listening to the stories and the amazing journey and the things and accomplishments that women have been doing. It is a soul-filling thing for me. And the extra why to why I feel that way, because it's directly in line with my values of success and accomplishment and joy. So when I think of the extra why, when I think of empathy, and again, it's a whole study, but as a skill, can I acknowledge how I feel and why? How can I acknowledge how other people feel and why with no judgment? Not like, I'm having this feeling, I'm feeling wildly exuberant joy. I really shouldn't feel joy. What I should be feeling right now is worrying about how I'm going to pay the mortgage next month. It's not like replace a feeling, have a different feeling. It's just accepting it. Asking open-ended questions. Open-ended questions to me are the manifestation of curiosity. And that is my go-to. My hashtag is stay nerdy. And it just basically means be inquisitive, be insatiably, weirdly curious people. as you all are, or you wouldn't be in a conference talking about vaginas and tomatoes. You are, we all have this, curiosity is such a primal thing. How many of people with small children or live with small children, they are the why machines. And they often don't accept our stupid answers that don't really answer the why. Why is the sky blue? I don't know. And then you could go into a whole atmosphere discussion, but they don't care. So those are the four core I call, and then I say there's plus two. And one of them is the pause. It's the power of silence. And a good rule of thumb, if you're like one of those people that feels like incessantly needing to fill the silence, how many of you kind of like to fill the silence or feel like silence is awkward? Where you're like, awkward, silence. And you feel like you need to jump in there with some words. So a really great silence, this is a few studies, we'll say it's 6 seconds. But the kind of pause that I'm talking about here has some energy in it. It's not like this where I ask a question and I'm like, that's not 6 seconds. If I'm asking a question, I want to be like, I'm ready to hear this answer and I'm going to wait for it. The great use of a pause is after you land a really great empathy statement. This is the hardest day of your life because you worked so hard and this thing just crashed and burned. That's a land. That's pause. And then, of course, agenda setting, which is, hey, we're going to have a conversation today. It's going to be about A, B, C, and D. What did you want to add to that conversation? This and that? Great, we'll add it. All those things. This is really, to me, when I need to have especially people ask me all the time, how do I deal with difficult people? How do I deal with, assholes that I don't like? I don't have a magic wand. All I have is skills that we can build. So in that moment, when I go to how do I facilitate, how do I manage in a difficult conversation, there's only one thing I do, and I go to curiosity, and I start with I wonder. When someone's behaving badly in front of me, there's 2 ways I can go about it. And I mean behaving badly, like making me uncomfortable or not violent or abusive. I mean, like they're angry, they're frustrated, they're sad, whatever emotion they're having is making me uncomfortable. If I go with, I wonder why they're behaving like that. What can I learn here? Or I can go, I wonder why they're behaving like that. There's a very different intent. One has curiosity, one has disdain. So we have to really fuel our curiosity. And this is me, literally almost 30 years ago to the day. When I was in the program at Fairview College learning to be an animal health technologist. I'm as curious, I believe, then as I am now. I fuel it. And it's really hard to be frustrated, angry, or disgusted in any form of communication if your mind goes to, I wonder what's next. I wonder why that's happening. I wonder why they're behaving that way. Curiosity is a really good rival for some of the other negative emotions that we have. So I choose curiosity. I embrace it all the time. That's what I'm after. So I'm going to get you to practice this. I'm going to end with a little video here because we're in the last. But this is the thing that matters to me. When I talk about connection, it is about going around, looking at people, it's smiling, it's saying, what do you think of the conference so far? It's about taking yourself around. It's maybe sharing space, like this. Actually, I just kind of want to stay here and sit with you. We have to get this connectedness. And it doesn't matter the tool. So if I'm talking about active listening, so I'm going to challenge you at some point today, when you're sending a text to someone, can you reflect back in another way what they've said in their text? Sounds like, seems like. Because sometimes what we do with our technology is we flatten the dialogue. But we can still use listening and empathy and all that kind of stuff, all those skills, no matter the tool. It really just matters how we use it. So that's what I think about all the time. I think about communication is simply, and it is simple because we're all really good at developing skills. Communication, specifically dialogue, interacting with other human beings, which regardless of all the technology that we have, we still need to do that. We still need to interact effectively, interestingly, joyfully, with curiosity, with the other people that are around us. And all of us in business, it's one bell that I heard being rung over and over and over again, either as a barrier or as an advantage, was all the people. So I don't want you to be fatigued by people. I know it is hard not to be some days. But when we can build our dialogue skills, no matter the tool, suddenly those difficult conversations become our most rewarding ones. And that's what I wish for all of you, is simply some great dialogue every day. Every time you have a conversation, they don't become difficult, they just become more and more interesting because your curiosity is really elevated. So the practice is when you're sitting around together at lunch is dare to dialogue. Ask somebody, what has been your greatest takeaway from this conference so far? Listen, pause when they say something to you, ask a great question, retell their story. Can you acknowledge how they feel in the moment? That's how we practice it in a low stress, highly empowering type of environment like we're in today. So I'm going to leave you with this video and my wish for you to all have great dialogue. Hey, this is Becky Taylor, and I'm bringing you a bit of BS. Something that I've thought a lot about as I have learned and taught and thought about communication skill is the concept of having like a give a shit meter. And what that means to me is that it's a radar, it's a gauge, it's a dial that tells me the person that I'm talking to is engaged in this conversation with me. For myself, when that dial is all the way on, that tells me that I'm using my high-end skills, that I'm bringing all those important things to the table that allows me to be very connected to another person who I'm talking with, or persons. So that's the question I ask myself when I'm going into a conversation, when I'm coaching others, when I think about dialogue in general. I want to ask the question, where is the arm on my give a shit meter, and is it all the way on, and how important is that into the conversations that I'm having? I think it's something, again, tongue-in-cheek concept, but something that's really important to me. When I'm talking to somebody and I really want to be engaged, I want to see that their dial is all the way on as well. Then we can have very good, very connected, very in tune conversation that's both rewarding and interesting. Thanks for watching. Stay nerdy.